happy moment for all of us. Happy in the sense that this is a day of culmination of events leading to this book that we have made. Actually, when we say what else is rain, maybe the rain wants to show us what else it is. So that is why so many days there was no rain. Now there is suddenly all this rain. But this evening, it's more sunshine to us because it's a day of fruition. Things that happen. We are all here together, and this is a very enlightening crowd of poets. I shouldn't say a crowd, but it's a very nice group of poets. And I should say happiness and sunshine not only for us. I consider it very, very lucky that we were able to even get some mileage out of this book in terms of giving some a nice substantial amount of 62,000 rupees to the differently abled center run by the magician Utuka. It's only because of the magnanimity and the generosity of many of the poets and the wholesome support that we got. Many of you may be wanting to know what exactly and why exactly we wanted to do this book. In fact, many of the places when I go, even in poetry chain groups and the WhatsApp groups, or in some of the festivals I've attended, there has always been people who come to me giving me the books. It's normal, but still giving me the books and explaining that they have written this, and when I go through the books, there is a lot of density. There's a lot of things in the book that should get more mileage and more exposure. So I have been thinking about this book from such a perspective. And then I thought to myself that having done this poetry chain for such a long time, having done these underground flowers, having done this chipmunk, why not bring a book of poets from Kerala? So that is how I initiated this idea. It has been there in my mind for a long while. But now it has borne fruit. At such point of time, it's remarkable that the poetry I got is also substantially good. You know, like I was just telling one of my friends, I would have read at least around 1,200 poems for this book. And because I called for around 10 to 12 poems per poet. And around 80 poets responded. And finally, I invited some senior poets also. I made some poets. I thought I read good poetry in some poets, new poets, and so I put them all together. And finally, we were able to take around 180 to 200 poems. It is, I think, a more stringent evaluation than the civil services, because because and more interesting and more vital is that I'm able to emote and I'm able to see the poetry of each poet sitting before me. It is like, see, I was just explaining, when somebody writes a novel, the novelist enters the character. But when one does an anthology for a poetry, one enters a poem and one enters a poet. Because of poetry, the poetry of a poet is all said very personal, very subjective. Whatever big terms we may use, like objective correlativity and all that, it springs from subjectivity. It springs from emotions. It springs from experiences, vicarious or direct. So these things, so whoever is the poet is, I'm able to notice the kind of nuances that the poets have been able to bring across. This is what I basically wanted to say. I will not prolong this because this is basically for the poets. And the second thing I want to say is that why did we ask for 3 copies to be purchased? One is, of course, to have a mirror image of yourself and keep looking at it and keep thinking I have done a very wonderful job because my poems have come in a book. But the sense of, beyond the sense of complacency, the important thing is that we should step further, write further, and not only write further, do a lot for this book. Because each one of you has the potential to do a lot for this book, not for the book, but for yourself. It's only when this book goes out and walks around that the meaning of this book will be made visible. It's easy to keep all 3 of the books and say, I got this book in this, my poems in this, and then I keep them in the shelf. But it's not. One is for the shelf, 2 should be walking around. So I think that is very important. So these small words I wanted to say, and now wishing you all a happy reading. I would invite Nat and Chinchu to introduce poets and start the reading. Thank you.